All right, we're gonna read a little more. So this should be, yep, chapter 4. The board is set. It was dark. My net connection was still scrambled from whatever they had done to it earlier, so I had no way of knowing where I was, what time it was, or anything. I did know there was a rain event planned for this area, given it had started raining on me at some point. That was about how far my knowledge extended. It was cold and miserable, but I'd been running in a disoriented haze before the first drops of water hit me. The shower helped wash some of that away, but only some of it. There was still a fog draped over my mind, and it just wouldn't leave. So I ran and ran. My feet splashed through countless puddles. I went through dozens of unfamiliar street alleys. Somewhere along the way, I realized my shoes were gone. My toes were freezing, and stinging pain shot up into my calves each time my heels slammed into the ground. It wasn't until much later that it occurred to me to wonder why I was barefoot, though. Even then, I could only assume I must have lost them when I got out of that building from before. I spent what felt like hours alternating between running down deserted streets and cowering in doorways to catch my breath as I shivered in the rain. At first, I thought I was in the same sector as before. It was abandoned, but there was no blast damage. I just couldn't say for sure. I could have teleported myself a kilometer away from the previous place or 100 kilometers. I had no idea. I had no way of knowing. And that had already been hours ago. I hadn't seen anyone else in the entire time, though I'd been on the move for the most of it. There might have been people squatting in empty buildings, in fact. It would be more surprising if there weren't, but I didn't see or hear anyone else. No one human, anyway. At some point through the haze, I felt something beyond the frantic need to go home. A deep, frightening certainty I was being followed. It wasn't the sort of paranoia you could ignore, but a feeling so powerful and raw that it took a hold of me and wouldn't let go. It's just, it just spurred. Sorry, my doggies. It just spurred me to run faster, keep pushing myself until I thought I'd collapse. I'd been crouching behind a garbage receptacle, resting when I first caught sight of it. I only saw it for a second before it vanished again, which told me it definitely had a stealth function of some kind. I had crouched there for what seemed like forever, too paralyzed with the fear to chance to moving. But eventually, the pressing need to get home set me running again, with every sense I had on full alert in case it was still nearby. It wasn't long before I had to stop for another break and ducked into a tight corner to hide in the shadows and take a breather. My head hurt so much, throbbing in time to each rapid heartbeat. Each breath felt like a broken glass scraping its way through my throat. My ribs, my feet, my everything, it all hurt. Exhaustion washed over me, causing my head to droop nearly to my knees. I can't sleep. All I wanted to do was curl up somewhere, but I couldn't afford to sleep in the open. I didn't know if the thing was after me, was programmed to restrain me, or just take me out. It was small, too small to be a proper retrieval unit, but the goal might have been to incapacitate me. I don't know what the word is. Me until someone could arrive to pick me up. And there was no reason to think it was the only thing trailing me, even if it was the only one I'd seen so far. The main question was who sent it. It didn't look like something two-bit criminal group that got caught wind of a new queen would have access to. Ugh, the whole queen ranked Esper thing. I hadn't wanted to believe it. I hadn't believed it at first, but how else would I explain getting out of that building? Initially, I thought maybe Ari had done it, but then he had somehow teleported me to safety as the building crumbled. But I was the only one who got out. If it had been him, I wasn't sure he would have followed me. And queen ranks could mimic the PSI waves, and the others reproduce their abilities. I couldn't reject the possibility that I'd mimicked his skill in the panic. There were implications to that I didn't want to think about, like the fact that it was true. Then, even if I made it home, they wouldn't stop pursuing me, unless I got protection from another group with the strength to keep everyone else away. Endgame. I let out a soft groan, thinking that far ahead was pointless. I just needed to worry about getting back to the populated area where I could get help. With eyes burning and ears ringing, I forced myself to my feet. If I stayed in one place, that thing would just find me, so I had to keep moving. Even if I couldn't see it with its stealth program activated, I could feel when it was near, like warning lights in my brain telling me that there was a threat close by. It was too strong to be a gut instinct, and if I could accept the queen rank theory, then it would be best to assume I should listen to that feeling. I glanced up at the dark sky, wondering when the rain would end. It had been off and on for quite some time. If that machine was tracking me by heat signals, then the cooler environment, the more I'd stand out. I need to sit close to the walls, so I would avoid the open for a while and try to stay in the alleyways and hope that that was the right decision. When I get home, I'm going to take the hottest shower, then bury myself in blankets. I'm going to never leave my apartment again until I get test results. That's right, the exam. I had to get back home for that. I didn't have time to worry about espers. My mind went back to what but I told Ari they were wrong about me. I wonder what happened to them. And that woman, buried alive somewhere? The possibility made my stomach do uncomfortable flip-flops. I didn't like that thought. I paused, a hand resting against the cold wall. They probably got out, right? The little warning light in my brain went off, and that deep feeling of panic and fear hit me again. Okay, so should we flee the area to a safer place or try to find a place to take shelter? Flee the area to find a safer place. Blood rushed to my head as I pressed myself against the wall, looking around wildly for a place to hide. That thing was close by again, and I could feel it. If I could just somehow replicate that teleport I'd done before, if I could get out of here. I was so tired. I wanted to stop running. But if I stayed where I was, it would find me, and I have a general sense of where it was. Somehow, and I knew it was coming closer. I would have to make a break for it, and if it heard me and gave a chase, I didn't know. I'd have to deal with it then. Clamping my mouth shut to the quiet and ragged breaths and doing my best to quiet my steps, I turned and fled silently back the way I came. I don't know how I drummed up the energy to run, but I wouldn't be able to keep it up much longer. Tears squeezed from my eyes, both in frustration and pain. At some point, I would collapse, and when I did, it would be over. If I could just find a safe place to rest just for a few hours, but I couldn't imagine being able to break into a building without being spotted. Part of me wanted to stand my ground, to stop running, but there was no guarantee that would get me anything but captured or worse. So with no other goal or direction in mind, I just ran. There was no sounds of pursuit, not that I could hear anyway. I tried to go in as straight line as I could, heading away from where I'd been and away from that thing. It didn't take long before I reached an area where the alleys broke back out into streets. I stopped, breathing hard. Doggies. I stopped, breathing hard, lungs burning. Being out in the open was unwise, but my only other option was to loop back the way I came. I didn't feel that sense of danger, so I would have to chance it. I staggered out the alley at the same time I heard the roar of an engine. Before I could retreat, light flooded the area as the vehicle crested the hill. I held up a hand, letting out a hiss at the light temporarily blinded me. I whirled around and tried to flail my way back to the alley because there was no reason for anyone else to be in this place. My knees gave out and I went sprawling again. This time I just couldn't get up, even as I heard the car come to a stop behind me and someone get out. This is it. It's over. There were rapid footsteps coming towards me. I tried to lift myself up on my arms that were not cooperating at all. Holy shit, are you okay? Someone tried to help me back to the sitting position. I let out a strangled cry, trying to push them away. Whoa, hold up. Hey, it's me. That accent. I squinted up at the person crouching over me. Jack? You look like hell. What are you doing here? Well, I can't really pretend I'm here for any reason other than to find you, but I swear I just want to help you. My chin quivered and I tried to bite back the tears. How can I believe you? Do you know what I've been through today? I wasn't sure why it was that phrase that finally broke me, but I let out a sob, one hand on his chest to keep him at bay, and the other wiping at my eyes as the tears started flowing. Hey, come on now. He drew me closer, wrapping his arms around me, and I wanted so much to push him away and run because I couldn't trust him. I knew I couldn't, but I still clung to him and cried, shit. I dissolved into a shaking mess, and he just patted my back and let me cry into his chest. After a few moments, he spoke again. Nori, I'm sorry, but we have to get out of here. You're being tracked. I know that. You know where it is? I shook my head, trying to speak around the ache in my throat. I don't think it's close. He pulled away and looked down at me with a serious look on his face. But if we don't leave soon, it won't be long before it finds us or someone else does. He stood up and offered me his hand. Don't trust him. He's too shady. Trust Jack even though he's kind of shady. We're gonna be emotional and trust Jack even though he's kind of shady. That Jack was here was kind. That Jack was here was kind of shady, and even he admitted he was looking for me. I wasn't stupid enough to believe some stranger I met by chance the night before had somehow gone on a vigilante rescue mission. I don't know what that word is. He was another person after me for being a queen ranked, but he hadn't yanked me off the street and shoved me in a car. He hadn't shot at me. He hadn't attacked me in a dark hall. And if I was being practical, he had a car, and I desperately needed to get away from this place. I hesitated a split second, then reached for his hand, pulling myself up to my feet. I wasn't sure my legs wouldn't give out, but even as I wobbled, Jack caught me. "You're in pretty bad shape, aren't you?" His voice was soft and the tone gentle and comforting enough to make me cry again. He must have taken that as a hidden message. He scooped me into his arms, which hurt because my entire body did. But also was a relief because I didn't think I could walk anymore. "Let's get the hell out of here before that thing finds us. When we're safe, I'll give you some of the answers I know you want." "Need." What was that, Butterfly? "You'll give me the answers I need." He smiled faintly as he carried me to his vehicle and placed me inside just like a child. "Yeah, I'll give you the answers you need." Ugh, I feel terrible. "You look it too. Seems like they put you through hell. And then some." He hopped in the front and slammed the door. For one moment, the panicky sense of a danger spiked, and I had nearly bolted upright to figure out where the hell that thing was. But then we were speeding away, and the feeling faded as we left the deserted sector behind. I don't know how long we drove. I had been so determined to not let my guard down, but I dozed off pretty fast. Even if I was so cold and wet, the car was warm, and Jack didn't make small talk. The hum of the power cell lulled me to sleep, broken up by dreams of gunfire and fractured rainbow light. At some point, I woke up sort of slouched down in the seat with Jack's coat draped over me. It took me a moment to realize where I was, much less to remember how I got there. Still groggy, I sat up. The pain in my head had faded to a dull throb at the back of my skull. My eyes were weirdly sore for some reason. I rubbed at them as I squinted at the passing scenery in the windows. We had made it through the habitable area. "You awake back there?" I take that as a sort of. "Where are we?" My voice was hoarse and my words a little slurred. I felt like I had the worst hangover imaginable. Looks like we're somewhere in Arlie." I let out a soft groan. Yeah, I figured we were pretty far from home, but that was on the very edge of New Albion, practically in Cern. At this point, I was going to stop somewhere soon, at late night cafe or something. I struggled to get myself awake when he said that. "Why?" "I'd like us to be able to sit and talk a bit face to face. And frankly, you look like you had a pretty bad case of PSI fatigue. Probably would be good to get some food in you. Besides, I figure a bathroom break is in order. We had a long trip ahead of us." "What's PSI fatigue?" "From overuse of PSI, you have the classic symptoms. I mean, I reckon you have a headache the size of the triad right now, mind fog, elevated heart rate. Well, the headache is a little better. Sleep will help you a bit, yeah. What if the others find us? We've been driving for 2 hours, taking a slightly roundabout way back. I'm not sure we're still being tracked at this point. Hopefully not." It didn't instill a lot of confidence. I watched buildings and lights slide past, mind sort of vaguely on what my next move would be. Where would we go from here? What would I do? Maybe this would be my chance to separate myself from Jack and strike out on my own. But even if I did, what then? I sighed again, rubbing my sore eyes. I still can't connect to the net. Yeah, that could just be because someone subjected you to the nano scrambler. Could just be that your PSI has messed it up. That can happen when your nano system isn't equipped to withstand a PSI burst like the one you unleashed. I've never seen one of that magnitude. For an untrained Esper to do that, you're lucky you didn't give yourself permanent brain damage. PSI burst? Jack seemed to have spotted a good place to stop because he slowed and turned into the car park of an empty cafe. He came to a stop, then changed his mind and drove around the building to park in the alley behind it. "Don't know what it is?" "No, I know. I just didn't intend to release anything like that." "And how did you even know about that? You weren't in that building." "I had tracked you there and was outside when it collapsed. I saw the distortion trail you left behind you when you teleported. That's how I managed to find you later on." Jack hadn't hidden it from me that he had been looking for me, but it was still unnerving to hear all that. How long have you been following me around like this?" "Let's head inside, Nori. I promise I'll explain everything." He opened the door and got out, stretching the kinks out of his back. I followed suit, wincing as soon as my feet hit the ground. My knees felt less than steady as I grabbed at the car, which wobbled uncertainly underneath the sudden weight. "Watch out!" He reached for us both. I instinctively jerked away from him, the air crackling with energy, and every light, horn, and alarm in his two-seater lit up and crazy. I clapped my hands to my ears as Jack fiddled with the controls, desperately to shut it off. "Stop it!" "I don't know how." Jack let out a growl of frustration and grabbed my shoulder, squeezing just enough to get my attention. "Come on, deep breaths. If you release this much energy, even that asshole Magnus might get a lock on this location. And if he doesn't know the bishops will, then they will really track us down. You have to get a hold of yourself." I took several slow, wheezing breaths as I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to not do what I was doing to set the car off. It was hard to relax with the alarm shrieking at us this way. They were, not to mention that the screaming pain in my head was back, but the instruments began to die down one by one. Good job, just keep breathing slowly and focusing on my voice. Easier said than done. But I did my best until finally the noise stopped and I could open my eyes again without feeling like I would inadvertently blow something up. Ugh, you okay? I feel really dizzy. I'll bet. Let's get you inside, Butterfly. He wrapped an arm around me, and this time I didn't pull away. It's only because I needed the extra support to stay upright. As the automatic door slid open and we stopped into the warm cafe, Jack gave me a half-worried and half-amused glance. So I've been wondering for this for a while, but where the hell are your shoes? No idea. I think I lost them when I teleported. I lowered my voice even though no one was around. It looked like a place with an actual kitchen in the back. Wherever the staff were on shift must have been back there. There weren't any other customers. Maybe we can do something about that later. I don't have any extras on me though. It's fine. It's not like I'm expecting to have my wardrobe needs taken care of. For now, it was enough that he got me out of that place. Jack navigated us to a table. I sat and tucked my feet onto the view. Jack looked around as he took the seat across from me. Cozy. I hugged his jacket close, wishing I would curl up somewhere and sleep for 10 years. What happens now? Are you going to take me home? I knew it was a long shot. He hadn't been watching me all this time just to take me home after finding me. You know, if I do that, people will only come for you again. I know. I hugged his jacket closer and shrank into my seat a little. Then what do you want from me? Well, that's obvious, isn't it? I want you to come with me. Where and who are you? He seemed surprised by that phrasing, as if he hadn't expected me to have already divided the people looking for me up into groups. I was going to take you to the court. The court? The what? I lowered my voice as someone came out of the kitchen. A curious owner, perhaps. Jack waved that way and called out to him, ordering 2 coffees. I watched the older man nod and retreat. The cult? Jack's lips curved up to a smirk. They're not a cult. I have no idea how that rumor got started, but they're just a community of espers living together and keeping each other safe. Living together where? Delphine. It's really the only place for them. The court, huh? I never had heard a single complimentary thing about them, and the concept of them as an innocent community of espers didn't feel right. So you're with them? It's not completely correct to say I'm with them. Wow, I don't know what that said. He said he wouldn't lie to me, but I didn't know if I could believe what he said. If that's the case, then how did you find out about me? There's a man back at the court who's adept at sensing other espers. He came aware of you a few days ago, and he just sent you to get me out of kindness of his heart. We knew that other people would seek you out in-game, nor the host, nor that mafia group in Delphine. They're pretty well known for their experiments on espers. Human experimentation is banned, including when it comes to esper genome research, because the mafia has a great deal of respect for the law, right? That's horrible. I know this may come as a shock to you, but even your own government that doesn't respect those kind of bans, there are more than a few rumors about the work the Triad is doing in the regard as well. Those people looking for you do not have your best interests at heart, I guarantee that. But you and the court do? Why? Because for the same, the court is made up of people sick of being a part of this chess game between the government and everyone else. They just want to live freely. I studied him wordlessly. I was nowhere near the adept enough with any sort of PSI abilities to peek inside his mind to see anything more than what he wanted to reveal, assuming that that was a thing espers could do. When we met yesterday at the fountain, I arrived in Cecilis yesterday and spent the better part of the day tracking you down. Why didn't you tell me any of this then? Well, I was waiting for the right chance. I mean, if I rocked up and told you that and told you you had to come with me, what would you have done? You wouldn't have gone with me. It would have just scared you off, and I wanted to find the right time to reach out to you. I didn't expect 2 kidnappers to grab you off the street like that. Do you know who they were? I know this will be a little tough to believe, but they were from the endgame. Endgame, huh? Was that really true? You don't seem surprised to hear that. I had considered the possibility. I just don't understand why they'd kidnap me. First of all, if someone from the court will sit down and talk, why would Endgame yank me off the sidewalk and shove me in a car? They're supposed to protect people. They're basically law enforcement. More like they're just above the law entirely. When it comes to Endgame, I can promise you they're not what people think they are. And there's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors and in dark alleys and main districts, and sometimes right out in the open. A queen-ranked esper is rare, and they probably weren't quite counting on as many groups to know about you. Acquiring a new queen in secret would be his pretty significant trump card. You're saying that man handled me, terrified me, and risked my life for a trump card? That's how things on this side work. You want to stay on top, you need trump cards to do it. But isn't that because they're always trying to keep groups like Crimson and Nora at bay? And maybe even the court too. Just because I haven't heard of you people doing anything horrible doesn't mean you don't. So you're fine with how they handled this? Of course not. I didn't know. My head was hurting too much to make a judgment calls about this right now. I know it's a lot to take in, and you'll have to forgive me. Endgame may be heroes to people on this side of the world, but where I'm from, they're just a part of the problem. When the government is corrupt, maybe it needs its toes stepped on a little. I pressed my fingertips against the bridge of my nose, squeezing my eyes shut. I didn't really know what to believe about any of this. Even if Jack was telling the truth, that didn't mean going with him was the best option. Endgame was still Endgame, and the court was still some weird group off in another country. And if I said I didn't want to go with Jack, would he even let me go? I had no idea. Look, I'm going to step away for a few minutes, go to the restroom. Our coffee should be out soon. He stood and shot me a faint grin as he started away, and the car requires voice authentication to unlock it, so don't even think about trying to steal it. I shot him a scowl as he left me at the table and disappeared to the door on the other side of the restaurant. I laid my head on the table and shut my eyes. What was I supposed to do now? How was I supposed to plan my next move? My head was hurting too much to think about it clearly. I just didn't know if I could trust Jack. The whole bit about the court was both confusing and worrying. It didn't have a good reputation, no matter what he said. It's true that Cecilis may not get the entire story when it came to the news out of Delphine, but I'd heard nothing good about the court. I couldn't imagine myself becoming a part of that group. Besides, I thought that guy from yesterday, from earlier today, was with them. And that made me worry about it even more. Jack seemed level-headed, but could I really trust that he wasn't lying to me? As far as I knew, he wasn't from the court at all. He could just be with any group. It would be stupid to believe him just because he had helped me one time. On the other hand, he said Caleb and Aru from Endgame, and I couldn't come up with a single reason to lie about that. Well, maybe to make Endgame look bad so I wouldn't try to go to them. What they had done seemed unconscionable, but maybe they had a reason. Maybe it was to protect me from people like Jack. Endgame was a group I knew and could trust. Whatever else was true about them, they helped people. Jack was surely right when he implied that there was more to them than what the public knew, but I struggled to believe that they were secretly evil. Probably. At any rate, they had an army of espers. It wasn't like they could take over if they wanted to, yet they strove hard for neutrality. I let out a frustrated groan. I didn't even know where Ari and Caleb were. A slow tingle started in my feet and made its way up my legs. At first I thought it was just because I was finally warming up. But no, my heart started pounding and there was a sudden intense feeling of something approaching. I whirled around, sitting up fast as I overturned my chair. Both, of course, there was nothing. This was similar to what had been happening in the abandoned district, but somehow different. There was no real feeling of being threatened, just of something getting closer. In my mind, I saw a flash of Ari here in the cafe looking down at me. And then it was over. The feeling was gone, and I was left trying to figure out what exactly that had been. I rubbed my throbbing head again. It felt like a dam had burst open inside me. I never used to be able to do this kind of thing. Ugh. Did this mean those two would find us soon? If that were true, what should I do? Go out through the front to Jack's car, try to slip to the back on foot, wait there and say nothing, find Jack and warn him. Hold up. So find Jack and warn him. This choice will unlock the Crimson character routes. Do you want to proceed? No. Wait and say nothing. This choice will unlock the endgame character routes. If you want to proceed, try to slip out through the back on foot. Ruben's route is unreleased. Do you want to read his route preview? Go out through the front to Jack's car. Lance's route contains spoilers for Magna. Okay, so we're gonna wait here and say nothing. Yep. This was it. It was either trust Jack and go with him to the court, hoping he wasn't lying to me, or go with Ari and Caleb, who were a part of a group who, whatever else was true about them, had protected this planet and everyone on it for centuries. Sorry, Jack, I couldn't go with them. I would just wait here for Ari and Caleb to catch up on us. Righting my chair, I sat down and let my head flop onto the table with a groan. I lay there long enough to drift off before Jack returned. Well, I'm glad to see you're still here. The sound of his voice dragged me back into the world of waking. I made a grunt of acknowledgement, opening my eyes and stared sideways at the wall next to our table. A little twinge of guilt gnawed at me. You said I wouldn't be able to steal your car anyway, so you thought about trying it? Yes. I have to admit, I appreciate your honesty. I don't know where I would go anyway. I don't know how to get home from here, and I don't know what I'd do when I got there. Like you said, more people will come after me, which just meant the life I'd known until now was gone, no matter what I choose to do. You okay? Yeah, just headache. Why don't you get up, get you something to eat, and where the hell's the cop? His words were cut off abruptly, causing me to look up. Sorry to keep you waiting. 2 cups slid on the table, but my eyes went wide when I saw who was the one putting them there. That hadn't taken long. And don't believe everything this liar tells you. He was sporting a fresh cut along the side of his eye, a spider web of blue and green branching out, evidence of his expanded nano system, busy regenerating the cells and healing the injury. And Caleb looked rather well for someone who had had a building collapse on his head. Jack seemed rather unfazed by Caleb showing up. His baffling response to this development was to pick up his coffee and take a sip. I'm almost glad to see you're kicking, Jack. It's been so long since you've been a pain in the ass. I thought maybe your boss got sick of you and tossed your body in the waste. Not a chance. He's not like your boss. He doesn't just abandon people to die. What the heck does that mean? Caleb's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Instead, he shot a glare my way. I flinched. As for you, he reached for my wrist and I instinctively tried to pull it away, even as he clamped some kind of device onto it. What the hell is this? PSI inhibitor. Looks like he doesn't want another building dropping on his head. Still gripping my wrist tightly, Caleb pulled me a little closer. I hope you realize that stunt you pulled nearly got us killed. If Ari had been a second too late, let go. I don't even know how I did that, much less did I do it on purpose. I'm not sure I believe you. If you don't want me to knock a building on you, then maybe you don't kidnap me. I slammed my free hand into his shoulder. He scowled at me, but I was tired and scared, and this stupid man was on top of my list, the people I was mad at. I'd already decided to go with them, even though I didn't like him. Why was he being a jerk? He grabbed my arm, pinning both wrists to the table in front of me. Will you be quiet? I struggled to free myself. Let me go. I was vaguely aware of Jack sort of laughing under his breath, and I shot him a glare, suddenly wanting to hit him too. He attempted to not look amused. He failed. I glared at him, tears stinging my eyes because everything hurt and I was so tired of all this. Don't start that crying nonsense. Then don't kidnap me. The tears spilled over and I wasn't sure if it was just because he'd say not to or if it was just because the energy had to go somewhere, and since I couldn't strangle anyone, I was gonna cry. Caleb, I may have warped the space around this table, but it would be better if you made some attempt to not create a disturbance. I let out a frantic squeak as Ari appeared out of thin air. I mean, I knew he could do that, but that didn't mean it didn't prepare me for him popping in and out of nothingness. I'm not the one shouting. I knew you'd be lurking around somewhere, Six. That gave me a pause, not because it was kind of weird nickname, but also because it was a nickname at all. I got this feeling before, but do the three of you know each other? I'm afraid so, Butterfly. Ari looked down at me, taking in what I assumed was my rather woeful appearance. He shot Caleb a despairing look. You made her cry. Don't give me that, and stop acting like you're not involved. I at least have done nothing but help her out today. If you hadn't been skulking around, you wouldn't have had taken such drastic measures in the first place. If I hadn't been skulking around, you wouldn't have even known about her. I shot him a poisoned look when he said that. So this is all your fault? You somehow neglected to tell me that earlier? If they had known about me because of him, did that mean everyone else had found out me because of him? Hey now, I told you I'm just trying to help you. Too bad that's a lie. Oh, and the two of you are here out of the kindness of your hearts? I don't have time for this. She's coming with us, Jack, and you can go back to your boss, or go to hell. You pick. And if I have no intention of letting you take her, you really think you'd do something about that? Will you stop talking about me like as I'm an object? I decide where I go and who I go with. My voice rose to a shout, and the window next to me rattled in the pain. I apologize for breaking into this discussion, but word from the towers that several others are closing in on this location. They believe at least one of them is from Nyx. The others are unknown affiliation. It may be the woman from before. Nyx? just how many groups of psychos are after me right now. Far too many for you to be safe with anyone but us. I couldn't deny that seemed like it was the case. Well, looks like you made up your mind. I shot him an apologetic look. Ha, don't look at me like that, Butterfly. You have to do what's best for yourself. But unfortunately, so do I. What? The three of them all moved at the same time, and all I caught was a blur of movement as Caleb tackled Jack, and Nari yanked me out of my seat towards him. A weapon went off and the back of my chair exploded. I crashed into Ari, who pulled me into an awkward, tangled semi-embrace. What had just happened? It took me a moment to realize Jack had been the one to fire a weapon at me. What? We're going. Yeah. I wasn't sure why I felt so betrayed, but I didn't have time to think about it. The world twisted and we left the fighting behind, staggering out onto the alley that probably wasn't too far away. I staggered away from him, still not quite used to that. I apologize. I know you wish to choose who you aligned with. That isn't a choice we can afford to give you. I had already decided when I realized the two of you would find us. You may be kidnappers, or at least the two of you never tried to harm me. I do not believe Jack shot at you by choice. He was likely under orders too. Are you defending him? Aren't you enemies? Things are not always as simple as enemies and allies. Yeah, well, say that again after he tries to shoot you. There was no way Jack believed he would hit you with Caleb and I standing right there. I don't get you people at all. I hate to interrupt the two of you, but we've been waiting an awful long time and would like to just get this over with. Arya and I whirled around to find several people in suits behind us, all with weapons drawn. How are they finding us? Endgame isn't the only one with competent bishops. Precognition. They must have someone with the foresight ability. So they just knew where we'd be and when. How do you fight against something like that? It is a troubling ability, but like you indicated, Mr. Suits, Endgame has bishops of its own. This time it was a woman who stepped around the corner behind the suits. She had a smirk on her face and was wearing a white and black uniform. One man kept his gun on us while the two others trained their weapons on her. Vanessa, your timing is impeccable, as usual. I try. So, what are you lads going to do? If you stay and fight, I assure you that you'll lose. But I'm feeling pretty generous, so if you run, we won't stop you. I pick my fights wisely. If your bishop wasn't aware of ours would be here, you may wish to consider that we're more prepared for this standoff than you are. For instance, the snipers. That set off a mild panic among the suits as one craned his neck trying to spot where anyone else might be hiding. The one man just stared at us, looking like he might try to stand his ground. But a split second later, there was a painful flash and they were gone. They ran away. Is that not what you wanted? Well, it is, sort of. She came towards the two of us, looking us up and down. Anyway, you two look terrible. It's been a long day. For you, not over. Get back over to Caleb and get him out of there. We'll get this one back to the tower. Jack? Leave him. Merlin's orders. And Ari, at this point, everyone knows we have the queen. No need for secrecy. I understand. Merlin? Ari vanished, leaving me with the woman he called Vanessa. He's the boss, and you look like you're about to pass out. I swayed just as she said it, but she sidled alongside me to offer support. So those people were really from the endgame. Is it over? I felt like every ounce of energy was just flowing away from me. I didn't even know if it was because it felt like I would finally be safe or if she was doing something to me. Well, it might be more accurate to say everything is just getting started, but you just get some sleep for now, and when you wake up, I promise things will be better than this. And with that, everything went black. And we're going to cut it there, folks. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.